this is a paper that I wrote for the ADMAP Award. So the ADMAP Award happens every year. The ADMAP's a journal about advertising and planning. And this paper won the Bronze Award. So the question for the paper was, how are brands built in the digital age? So it's quite a broad question. I'll just take you through how I answered it basically. So does anyone know who this guy is?
Your son?
No. What if one ethnicity? Not my son. His name is Falcon Henne. Does anyone remember what he's from? Basically in 2009, for about 6 hours, he was the most famous man in the world. Google searches were the most searched for term over those 5 hours was a term related to this guy. You probably remember him. It was in 2009, so it was 5 years ago, and he was basically the balloon boy. I don't know if you remember this. Basically, he was in Colorado. His dad made a weather balloon, which floated off, and then for some reason his parents decided it'd be funny to ring up TV station and say, "Oh, our son was in that balloon that floated off," and basically globally all 24-hour news coverage then turned to Balloon Boy for a 5-hour period until it landed and we discovered that actually it wasn't in the balloon at all, and it had been a big hoax, and therefore he just disappeared from everyone's consciousness and no one can remember him now. My point for starting the paper with this story was basically that digital has totally changed the way fame works. So people become famous a lot quicker now, for a lot shorter amounts of time, and that's important because if you read any of the IPA stuff, or Ehrenberg, or Byron Sharp, everyone agrees that actually the foundation of a strong brand, or a brand that's growing, is fame. That's the one thing. People call it different things, so they might call it saliency, mental availability, mental whatever, but they all basically say that fame is the one key aspect that all strong brands grow. So the way I took the paper was basically saying, if fame's the one key thing, one key ingredient that all growing brands have, and digital has changed how fame is developed, what does that mean for brands, basically? So, basically I clarify what brand fame is. So a lot of people get confused and think brand fame is just either awareness or top of mind awareness. And really what it means is the word saliency and the sort of mental availability idea is all about the quantity and quality of associations in people's minds. And so for a brand to be famous, yeah?
Sorry to interrupt, I don't know what saliency means.
Oh, it's the same as fame, basically. And this is a definition for saliency. It basically means that things are front of mind, but you have a lot of associations, so a large number of associations that are quality, so strong associations. And the point that Byron Sharp makes especially is that basically great saliency is stuff that comes front of mind when you're in the position to buy that product. So this was my definition of brand fame, but as I say, digital has totally changed how fame works. So the paper was all about, okay, if it's about brands growing in the digital age, and fame's totally changed, what does this mean for brands? And there's really 4 points that I brought out to why digital has changed how fame works. And the first was cumulative, advantage has increased. So basically, because of digital, the social influence has increased, so people are much more influenced by other people now because they can see more clearly what other people are doing, and the cost of interaction have drastically decreased. So the cost of spreading your messages gone down exponentially. So cumulative advantage has increased. So that's like the snowball effect. So what this means basically is the famous get more famous and the forgotten get more forgotten. Secondly, that's been boosted by the explosion in choice. So back in the day when before digital there was less choice and availability. Now with the explosion of choice, people have to look for what's popular more often. So whether that's been studies into how people choose what music they download, and the picture is basically a study people did on how city traders using an online platform decide what to trade. And when the market intelligence is low, i.e. they're not sure what to do, the most likely thing that they use is popularity. So they basically go, what's the most popular, and then they use that. And the same with music choice as well. The next point was that culture is more transient now. So culture's moving more quickly and changing more rapidly than ever before since the beginning of the 21st century, really. And the picture of the baby was related to a study anthropologists use as a proxy for culture because it's hard to measure. They use baby names, so the changing nature of baby names gives them an indication that culture is changing. And since the beginning of the 21st century, they've seen baby names change more rapidly in different ways than since records began in the 1900s. So things are changing quicker than ever before. And as I say, what that means is that the fame cycle is shortening. So people are going from unknown to famous to uninteresting in a more quicker amount of time. Does anyone recognise this girl? Do you remember her? So this is Axel, I can't really pronounce her Belgian surname, but basically she was a fan at the World Cup game versus Russia, a Belgian fan. She was caught on camera and then she became world famous. She was all over the papers. L'Oreal gave her a contract. Well, a few days later terminated the contract because they discovered that she liked to shoot animals. And more than that, she actually had made a post that said, "Hunts not a matter of life or death, what's more important, major hunts of Americans today." So they sacked her off. But again, it's an example of how fame's changing. Basically, people are becoming rapidly famous and then losing it quickly. And the general marketing response that we're seeing by brands is, okay, things are moving quicker and fame is quicker to achieve, then I know what the idea is. Let's become more real time, let's make more stuff more often, get it out there and try and get that fame. So we see a lot more things like this. So Oreo cookies is a famous one, obviously, but a lot of brands now, we've got the live room here trying to get on that latest thing so they can boost their fame and get attention. But actually, I think what the point I made in the paper was we're probably focused on the wrong type of fame. So if things are getting quicker and people are moving on quicker, there's more choice than ever, to focus on this type of fame, which you could call firework fame, it's here today, gone tomorrow, is the wrong approach. Does anyone know this guy? His name's William Kemp. He was a Shakespearean actor. Then one day, no one knows why, he decided, I don't want to be a Shakespearean actor anymore, I want to become a comedian. And in the 16th century there were many comedians. So what he decided to do as a bit of self-promotion was Morris dance from London to Norwich over a 9-day period. To promote himself, he wrote this leaflet called the 9-Day Wonder, and he became quite famous over the 17th century. He was quite a famous guy. But I thought it was interesting because in William Kemp's day, if you became famous for something like that, a stunt basically, you might be famous for 25, 50 years, people would still be talking about you. Today, if William Kemp, Morris dance from London to Norwich, he might be in the papers for one day and then he's lost the next day. So one of the papers that I sort of based this on was something by Google and the University in America, which looked at how are people being covered in the media now. So it was looking at fame of individuals in the media since digital started, and what I noticed is potentially basically the things I've been saying. So they termed it ephemeral fame, which I can't really pronounce. But they said actually there's two types of fame now, and they're both diverting. So there's more of this type of fame, which is the sort of passive, here today, gone tomorrow. So more people are in the media today and gone tomorrow than ever before. But secondly, what they said was there's more self-perpetuating fame. So those people who are really famous are getting talked about more often. So the famous are becoming more famous. Those people who are fireworks are becoming quicker and shorter. So fame is sort of splitting in two different ways. There's clearly two types of fame now when you look at the media from a people perspective. And my point in the paper was that actually what we should be doing is, so if we think about the Oreo example, that's all about the first type of fame, that passive fame, those fireworks, when actually a lot of our brands should be trying to develop self-perpetuating fame. It's more important than ever before. And I decided that actually you can split brand activity into two different parts. So instead of paid, owned and earned, I looked at it on the back of this, how fame works now, and said there was two different types of brand activities. The first is flows, which is basically things that change. So whether that be social media, content, advertising, a promotion, a one-off event, something that comes and goes, a stunt. And the other one was statics, which is more the constants in the brand, whether that be how the product's designed, commercial partnership that lasts a long time. And I said actually, brands are obsessing more and more about the flows. When we look at the brands that have grown over the last 5-10 years, a lot of them have focused more on the statics than they have the flows. And a few examples that I gave was Warby Parker. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're an optician, but not opticians. They sell glassware in America, and they've grown dramatically over the last 5 years. And it's basically on the back of 3 really core statics. The first of is if you buy it, it's online, so you can't obviously try it on. You select 5 different frames, they're sent out for you, you've got 5 days and you can return them all without even purchasing any, so you've got 5 days to try on 5 frames. Every glass that's bought, every pair of frame that's bought, they give away one to the third world, classic. And the third one, they also sell monocles, which is a bit different. But basically these three pillars really make them stand out, and you've seen dramatic growth. Another example is, and again it's an American example, but I think the present over here is the evolution of Smooth, which was a new lip balm. I guess there's lessons for liver in this that was launched in America a few years ago. And basically, instead of being a lip balm in a stick, as you usually get it on the tub, they created sort of an egg-shaped piece of packaging. And then their main way of getting sort of exposure was therefore anyone who uses this product, every encounter with it, people think, oh, there's an evolution of Smooth. It's obvious, whereas if you've got a Nivea stick or some other bog standard brand, then obviously the brand encounter doesn't self-perpetuate that fame as rapidly. And they had a lot of success getting these things into the hands of Kim Kardashian, Miley Cyrus, but every encounter with it stands out a lot more than if the design of the product is more standard and less export-worthy. And then the last one that I looked at was a partnership between Frito-Lay, who are walkers in this country, and Taco Bell, and they created basically a burrito where the taco was made of Dorito, and it's been amazingly successful. But basically, my point here is that they had a challenge, obviously, to get more people to come into their stores. And instead of thinking, oh, let's do an advertising campaign, they've created here a new product which has got great talkability and great interest from the public. For Doritos, it gets them distribution in 6,000 branches they never had distribution in before, and branding in all those branches. And they saw great success with this. They actually increased their sales turnover over the last few years by $1 billion. They had to recruit 16,000 more people. It was a real proper changer of their business and how it works. But these types of commercial partnerships, the point I made in the paper, are quite hard to do. The packaging, obviously you have to be involved very early with the brand to get anything in that. The actual product design, as we're talking about here, again you've got to be early and it takes a long time. So the Dorito deal that Taco Bell did, it took them 3 years to negotiate, and there was 44 different prototypes they went through until they got the flavouring right. So my point was that these things take a long time to do, and a lot of the agencies in this world are just really focused on today, the content we can make here, and yet that's probably not the most effective way to grow brands in today's world, especially for smaller brands. So I use this graph and basically make the point that actually in today's world, if you're launching a brand, then you really have to focus on those statics, those point of view, the product design. The story has to be baked into what you're doing. It can't be a slapped on advert. My point was though, if you're Coke, this probably matters less. If you've got Red Coke or Diet Coke, then yeah, of course, the flows are still really important because you've got that mass distribution, everything's set up already. And I ended it, over 50 minutes, sorry, just as an example of how brands should approach things in the future is thinking more like Philippe Stark thought when he had the brief off a essay for Lemon Squeezer. And he created something that wasn't about squeezing lemons, it was about starting conversations. And I think whenever we get a brief, the point in the paper was, should be thinking how, not the advertising or the content we're creating will create conversation, but how will this actual product and the brand at its heart always create a conversation or make sure every encounter counts. And I think a criticism you might say would be, well, isn't this just for the marketing department? Where do agencies sit in this? I mean, surely when we get the brief, often that's all done. We give them the product and say, can you sell that? But if you look back, even in the past, there's been opportunities and ad agencies have gone a lot further than just simply making an ad. So the McDonald's brief in 1977 was to their ad agency at the time, encourage more families to eat at McDonald's. Does anyone guess what they created? instead of an ad showing families eating there and saying come to our McDonald's, create the Happy Meal. So that came directly out of an ad agency. And it's these types of sort of approaches that I think are crucial to growing brands in the digital age. That's my presentation. Any questions? Any questions? A bit overrun. Does it make sense?
Yeah. Do you think like we as media agency, are we ready to bring ideas like that?
I think we're trying in this media agency. I think all the stuff that Vera was talking about yesterday about owned and earned, the stuff that we're doing with Project Ignite, is trying to get to a point where we're not just talking about content, we're talking about actual things that may change how the business behaves and getting closer to the product rather than the advertising. I think it's a long way to go, obviously, and often a lot of our clients don't see us for that. This is as a media agency, but I think it's where we've got to go in the future. I think it's one of the ways we've got to go.
Is our focus?
Sure?
Yeah. Our focus on real time, is that absolutely going absolutely against what you're saying?
No, I guess I made a point of going over the top in this paper, but obviously that has a role. I'm not saying it doesn't do anything. It's obviously good. The Oreo tweet is good, but we shouldn't focus, put all our focus on that. There's obviously a role to it, and it can encourage a little bit of fame, but we have to bear in mind that that type of fame now is quicker and more here today, gone tomorrow than ever before.
I guess it's just about us ourselves broadening our idea of what tool we have in our toolkit to work back as solutions. It doesn't always need to be media. So in
exactly.
your tool, it is product, creating product.
It's more baking in marketing into the product, but we have come back with a Happy Meal to, if McDonald's were our client and asked us to encourage more families to shop there, or to eat there, probably not. But
Isn't fame just about being distinctive? Is it just about distinctiveness?
Definitely. Well,
no,
it is about that. So in the paper I said that fame was built from basically visibility and getting people to talk about you, but the key one is actually visibility. So I referenced a couple of papers where they looked at and getting people to talk about you, I mean by being interesting, and they looked at what actually gets people to talk about brands, and they determined that actually it was just the fact that the brand was there, rather than it's doing something interesting. And I think that's where Coke obviously got it right at the beginning, where it was within an arm's reach. The main thing is getting your brand absolutely everywhere, as many places as possible, highly visible, and getting the products and the distribution of it. Interestingly, but it is all about distinctiveness, definitely, and if you look at the Coke brief, another thing that I mentioned in the paper, the brief that Coke sent to their design agency back in the early 20th century to design the Coke bottle said, we want a bottle that is so distinctive that when it's smashed, you know it's a Coke bottle, and when people pick it up in the dark, they know it's a Coke bottle. And that was how they came to that shape. But then you just see that, in this day and age, that type of thinking works better than ever. That's what I'm trying to say.
With your example of the Doritos thing, do you not think you'd get a lot of pushback from clients if you said, oh, well, if you do this in 3 years' time, you might see some...
Definitely, we're not set up, and maybe we don't have that relationship to say, we'd like to go in commercial partnership with Doritos. Exactly, it's going to take 44 prototypes and 3 years of negotiations to get this right. That's a question. A lot of our partnerships are more comms partnerships than commercial, aren't they? But it's a challenge, I guess.